Welcome to This Ordinary Life, a podcast dedicated to exploring the depth and the beauty of this human experience. Not through stories of celebrities or public figures, but through the voices of everyday people. I'm your host, Yumna Negm, and I believe that while we often hear from those in the spotlight, it is our friends, our neighbors, our peers, and sometimes even strangers who hold the stories that resonate with us the most. Each episode is a new story, one about love, about struggle, about resilience, or about the relentless pursuit of happiness. These are the narratives that speak to the core of what it means to be human. So, if you or someone you know has a story that's worth sharing, please reach out. I'd love to hear from you. Today, it is my honor to introduce to you our next guest, someone with a story as unique as it is universal. His experiences, like all of ours, is what gives sweetness to this ordinary life. Take a look. Saeed, how
Hello,
are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to delve into your story. Before we start, I want listeners to know that you have a very unique story. You are
Thank you.
Eritrean, grew up in Saudi, and now you
Mm-hmm.
work as an OR nurse in one of the top hospitals in the world, mashallah.
Thank you.
So I want to start from the beginning.
hmm
Where were you born?
So actually, I was born in Saudi,
Okay,
in Riyadh specifically.
okay,
Um, yeah, I grew up in Saudi between two identities, as a Saudi and Eritrean. Inside the house, you're Eritrean. Outside
okay.
the house, p- when people look at you, you give the perception that you're Saudi, but you're not. You're just juggling between those two identities.
Yeah.
And actually, English is my third language. It's not my second language as well. And I did
It's your
not.
first language?
No, no, no. It's my third
Your third language. Oh, okay.
English. I did not grow up speaking English at
Okay.
all. So growing up in Saudi, you only speak Arabic, of course, in schools and all of that. And then at home, my parents did a good job of raising us speaking Tigrinya.
No.
Yeah, it's
It's refreshing to speak
it's
all three languages.
it is, and
So
it's not easy to juggle between all of
it's
them.
not. It's very different.
And I read an article the other day that a person who speaks more than one language, that person might have different personalities. I still
Oh,
don't know if that's true, but
that's
you
so
can
interesting.
actually see it. The way you carry yourself speaking Arabic is totally different from the way you carry yourself speaking English and Tigrinya. So
Wow,
yeah,
that's so cool. Wait, so at home you spoke.
Tigrinya,
Help me, how you say it? Tigrinya.
Tigrinya.
Tigrinya. Okay,
Yeah,
so at home you spoke Tigrinya.
yeah.
You didn't speak Arabic at all.
No, no, you speak Arabic here and there between siblings.
And did your parents also speak Arabic?
Yeah, they do. They do.
Wow, that's so. I love that. I love that you
Thank
speak
you.
three languages in the whole family. That's such a flex, by the way.
Yeah, English came along later. I mean, when I moved to the States about 9 years ago, almost 10 actually now. And English came along like later on in life, and I learned English as an adult. So it's a bit different. That's why I struggle with it here and there sometimes. But
No, you
and
speak it perfectly. You
oh,
don't even have
thank
an
you.
accent, actually.
Um,
How old were you when you learned English?
After high school, yeah.
How did you
But
learn it?
movies.
Wow.
Seriously, movies. I used to be obsessed with movies. Just
Wow.
watching movies all the time, over and over again. Watching it without subtitles. Yeah, and then staying in touch with cousins overseas that live in the West or, that speaks English. So that really helped as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. That's so cool. So, which identity did you feel the most growing up or identified the most with growing up? Was it your Eritrean identity, your Saudi identity? And I know you said the American one came later, but between those two, you mean like adapt to different
It's
situations
different situation, different cultures.
or blend in?
Blend in.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, blend in easily. So yeah, I
Okay.
feel like yeah, growing up between different cultures that really um, does impact you as a person, and of course, in any situation in life, there's always pros and cons. And if you focus on the positive stuff and work on what's on your control, um, you'll be surprised of what you're capable of as a person.
Mm.
So yeah.
Mm. Okay. Well, before we get into the harder questions, I want to hear your
hmm
different dialects in Arabic.
in Arabic.
Yeah,
عايز
let me hear it Egyptian.
عايز ايه يا يمنى؟ في ايه الحاجات الجميلة دي؟ استوديو وما اعرفش ايه وبودكاست بسم الله ما شاء الله.
Okay, what else? What other dialect are you able to do?
Um,
What's the Saudi one actually?
oh, so when you say Saudi has a lot of different cultures, a lot of different dialect as well. So
Mm.
I grew up in Riyadh, which
Mhm.
is the Najdi dialect.
Mhm.
So it's more of كيف حالك وش أخبارك وش مسوي وش حالك and yeah, it's like it's different. And then in order for me to mimic or to speak a dialect, I need a kickstart basically, where just
I
let's
know.
start
I
it.
can't help you with that. I can't speak
Yeah.
it back.
So
So it's like you're speaking.
or the Hijazi ايش بك ايش في ايش الهرجة عاد ايش بك. So yeah, there's like different dialects, and being a visual person, like as I told you, like grew up watching a lot of movies, musalsalat or whatever. Like the Egyptian dialect just came on later on, like with musalsalat movies,
Ah, I thought
and
like it's friends that you had, but
friends as well. Oh yeah, like growing up in Saudi, I had a lot of friends from Syria, Palestine, Yemeni, and Lebanese, and Jordanians. Hopefully I'm not forgetting anybody, but yeah.
okay.
So yeah.
Okay, that's so cool.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And then so when you speak Arabic, which dialect do you go to?
Naturally, it's the Saudi way, but because I'll have a lot of I have a lot of Egyptians around me, so it's
The Egyptian one too.
it just kicks in a little bit here and there. So
Yeah, I was shocked when I first met Saeed and he spoke. I thought you were Arab. I thought you were Egyptian. And then you're like, no, I'm Eritrean.
I can
was like,
pass as Egyptian, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, of course. And I was like, oh,
I mean,
you're
in
not.
Nuba, you know.
I think Egyptians have very diverse
They do.
looks. Like even within one family, even within my family, we all look different. So it's
Yeah.
like, I think anyone can pass for Egyptian, to be honest. But
Yeah, that's true.
that's so cool.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay.
Thanks.
Do you want to say something in
Tigrinya.
Tigrinian?
Tigrinya.
Tigrinya. Do you want to say something in Tigrinya? Introduce yourself.
Oh. أنا سعيد الزبال حجي سني it's like it's there's something that when you ask somebody on the spot to switch between different languages or dialect, it's it could be challenging on the spot. You just need some type of the words, the vocabulary, everything is inside in your brain. You just need to speak it a little bit, and then it would kick in.
Okay.
But was it today? I think it was today. I was actually, or yesterday. I was speaking with one of my friends. He's Egyptian, so yeah. So of course, like
of course.
So
I think that's the dialect you use the most right now.
Really?
With the Egyptians. I don't know. I feel like I'm always hearing you speak Egyptian.
Maybe.
I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
So moving back to your identity, you said you grew up and you didn't know like like sometimes, you know, when you're speaking Arabic, you felt like that was your identity. When you speak English, that's your identity. And when you speak Tigranian, you feel like that's your identity. So at what age did you first become aware of this multi-dimensional part of you, or like, oh wow, I really don't belong anywhere? Was there ever, what was like the moment? Was it like something that happened in school or something that happened at home or anywhere that's like, wow, I'm really not any of these things solely, I'm parts of all of them?
So after high school, to be enrolled in a university, like especially public sector or public universities in Saudi, you have to be Saudi, or you need to know somebody. There's like a different ways basically. But anyways, long story short, that it did hit me where, hey, you can't really enroll with those things because you're not Saudi. And then you're lost between those two identities. Like, hey, I'm Eritrean, but even if I go to Eritrea, I'm not going to be true Eritrean to them. So, yeah.
So there were certain schools that you were not allowed to be in because you're not Saudi, although you were born there.
Yeah, it's different.
So
I feel like it's something that's in all of the most of third world countries, and even Eastern Asia as well. If you're born in China, you're not going to be Chinese.
So what was the alternative, by the way? If you couldn't go to the Saudi
Hmm.
universities or the private ones, was there something else that non-Saudis could go to?
A lot of my friends actually went to, their families sent them to India, for example, because it's cheaper and it's affordable, and it has a good education, especially if you're into tech,
Yeah.
trying to go to school for IT or whatever.
Mhm.
India was a good option. I have a lot of friends that went to India, Malaysia,
Mhm.
Philippines. So, yeah, and I'm talking about specifically about the Eritrean diaspora in Saudi. So, yeah, a lot of people went to those countries, did their studies, moved back to Saudi, and
Mm.
yeah.
When people ask you where are you from,
Hmm.
what do you say?
That's a really good question. So, if you asked me this question years ago, I would say, hey, um, like on paper, basically say, I'm Eritrean. That's where my families are from. That's my roots. But yeah, that's where I'm from. But if you ask me the question, where is home,
Mm.
technically, um, I don't know. Like home is the place or the space. You can make any place home. Minnesota was home for the past 9 years for me. Um, Now it's California for the past almost a year and a half. Before that was Saudi. So home is where you find yourself, um, where you feel safe, you feel your authentic self, I would say. Home is a place where you can easily thrive, be you.
So you don't
And
you don't associate a specific country with
no,
home.
not a country, not a place. Because in that way, you're just gonna tie yourself, limit yourself to, or label yourself like, hey, this is home. Is it though?
Okay.
For example, in California, I've been here for a year and a half. Now it's starting to feel like home, but not home home.
Mm.
Minnesota feels like home. Um, I lived there the longest since I
Mhm.
moved to the States.
Mhm.
Before that was Saudi. Even in Saudi, for example, when I went to visit Saudi this year, saw my friends and everybody, but it did change a lot, and I did not recognize it. And of course, like some friends don't live there anymore. And then when you revisit a place, you're trying to relive
Mhm.
the memories, childhood memories, or visit places that you grew up going to. Um, yeah, just like trying to revisit your childhood memories. And yeah, if things got changed, it's not gonna be the same at all.
Yeah, that's how I feel
Yeah.
about Egypt, honestly. Like, I spent a big chunk of my childhood in Egypt,
Hmm.
and then when I went back as an adult, I was shocked. I'm like, this is, you build
Yeah.
this, like, you romanticize this country, and I'm like, oh, Egypt is my home. And I still feel like Egypt is my home.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's
Hmm.
changed drastically.
Hmm.
Now, I don't know if you've ever been or,
I haven't been to Egypt yet,
yeah,
so.
like, it's so different now,
Mm.
in a good way and in a bad way, like anything else. Yeah, it doesn't look like what it looked like growing up. It doesn't
Hmm.
feel like what it felt like growing up.
Yeah.
And um, so I definitely I understand that. And it's kind of sad, right? Because when you build, like, for me at least, my childhood was so big. Like, all the fun I had, the people, the places.
Hmm.
And you build this image of what home is like, or
Hmm.
like what your childhood was like. And then you go back to that place and it's nothing like that. And it's like a little bit disheartening. Like, oh.
Yeah, but if you think about it, so basically you're talking about memories right now.
Mm-hmm.
The people that helped you create those memories, friends, cousins,
Mm-hmm.
family, um, you're a certain age, the thoughts that you had at that age, the experiences, the environment, all of that. You're not going to be able to relive those moments.
Yeah.
That's a sad
Yeah, of
story,
course.
but you cannot actually relive it. But that's the beauty of it, though, if you think about it.
Yeah. Mm.
So this podcast right now, this moments,
Mm.
those feelings, you're not going to be able to
Replicate.
replicate it or make it
100%.
happen again.
100%.
So you have two things of looking at things. Hey, I get to enjoy it, because if it's a good experience, I get to enjoy it. Um, and if it's a bad experience, just know that this is temporary and it's not going to last that long.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I agree.
mm-hmm.
Okay. A little bit of wisdom there for you guys. So when did you come here?
2014,
2014. And
December 18th.
December 18th. Oh, you're coming up on your anniversary very
Exactly.
soon.
It's crazy.
Oh my God, on your 10 years.
Uh-huh.
We should have a party. Are you going to do anything?
Nah.
And Minnesota. You went straight to Minnesota.
Yeah.
How long did you stay in Minnesota before moving to California?
I moved to California in March 2023. Mm-hmm.
Last year.
Yeah, last year. Literally.
Wow.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And you were in Minnesota the whole time?
Yeah, Minnesota.
That's where you went to school, did your education, everything?
Yeah, everything.
Okay.
Worked for a little bit and then moved here. Yeah, last year.
And you moved here for work?
Work, yeah.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow. So what drew you to becoming an OR nurse? It's a pretty intense job.
It is an intense job. To be honest, it was just curiosity. I remember in nursing school, we did not learn a lot of stuff about the OR. I just remember there was like 3 or 4 slides that just talked about the OR.
Oh, so you just did regular nursing. It's not like a specific specialty that you have to go into.
You go into the specialty later on when you graduate. There's different programs that you can join. The hospitals basically train you on those things. But for me, it was pure curiosity. I don't know anybody that did it. I had multiple friends that they worked in the OR as a surgical tech, and they were able to help me in a way. Like, hey, this is what we do, blah, blah, blah. But for me, the main reason I picked the OR is just curiosity. It's like, I don't know a lot of people that did it, and just go ahead and see what it is. I never thought about being a nurse.
What did you want to be?
That's a really good question. As a kid, it was like medical school, but life circumstances did not help. And then being a nurse was the what's the word for that? It was the best option, or the best thing to do.
Yeah, I get that.
Like at that time, in that moment.
It's like still in medicine, but not fully. Yeah.
But at the same time, like, you can find a lot of security out of it.
Yeah.
It's really flexible. You can do a lot of stuff with it. But it was like the best choice for that time, or for that moment. Everything was like, I was in a community college. They had a really good nursing program. It was accelerated, so that was good. And then going to school at that time, I was in my mid-20s, so I needed something that would not a quick skill, like a good skill. And that's really valuable in society, and that can and you can help with people with it too. So yeah. Okay. Because when I moved here, I was in my mid-20s. So yeah, it's not easy to
move here to
the States.
To the States.
So it's not easy to move to the States when you're in your mid-20s, and even though so English was more of a self-taught language for me. So when I first moved here, there was it felt like, hey, there's a culture. Of course, there's a cultural gap, and there is a lot of Midwest. There's a cultural gap, and then of course there's some type of language barrier in a way.
Yeah.
Until you get used to things, and then it takes time, to be honest. But yeah, to get used to everything. And my grade basically was one of the last people that studied everything in Arabic to the number, like the numbers, physics. Yeah,
you were telling me
everything.
The mathematics, y equals mv.
Yeah.
How do you say it in Arabic? I was shocked.
Y times
y equal mx plus b, or whatever that equation
like
is.
Equation, whatever.
Yeah. What it was
in Arabic was like sin ضرب صاد يساوي عين. So it's that's literally that's yeah.
Like random letters. That's so
It's yeah,
cool.
it's everything was in Arabic, even in numbers and
And
so
he said
yeah,
even like chemistry.
even chemistry, yeah.
Like what's O2 or like H2O?
CO2 ثاني أكسيد الكربون.
Ya lahwi.
Uh,
That's
so
so
it was
cool.
even when I took chemistry here, I used to pronounce things like the Arabic way, and they're like, "What?" It's yeah, it was yeah. And even when I took math classes here, I would solve the equation in a different way, and it's for example, for the negative sign, like positive or negative, I would put it on the wrong side, on the right side instead of the left, or vice versa. They're like, oh, I know what you mean. So it's like, even though it would give the wrong answer, but
Right, right.
but yeah.
Okay.
So that was it took.
So
some
those are
time to
actually some
adapt.
challenges too that like one might not even think about, like just within education, because you're coming from a country with the language is completely the opposite.
Yeah, and
Even in
like how
writing.
I mentioned it to you. My brother, who was a year and a half younger than me, he was like 2 grades younger than me. He studied everything, like for in numbers, for example, in equations and math. It was in English, even though like everything was being explained in Arabic. But for me, everything was Arabic, and they changed it after that. So it's
That's
so I got to experience something unique.
That's so cool.
Even when I look at my high school notes, the physics, for example, everything is in Arabic. Formulas. It was challenging, of course, but I feel like it's all about how you look at things and your perception.
Yeah.
So there's two things of looking at it, looking at it basically. So my personal experience. First year, oh, I'm so excited. You know, like just moved to the States, new opportunities and all of that. It's like you're in wow. A year later, 2 years, you start feeling homesick. Oh yeah, it's like this is different. And Minnesota, Minnesota was different. Like having family there helped a lot, like a lot. Cousins and all of that. So that did help a lot.
Help in what?
Build a supportive space, I would say.
Okay.
In a way, yeah.
Okay.
And you have people that you can rely on, or people that can help you navigating things a little bit. But yeah, like first year it would be like you're super excited. 2 years later, 3 years later, you feel homesick a little bit. You feel down, and then you go through this phase where, hey, like this is the new home. You know, you just gotta need to adapt and blend in and try your best. So yeah, I feel like me personally, I went through those 3 phases. Yeah.
Do you feel like a sense of belonging, like you are where you're supposed to be? To me, when I look at you, I'm shocked that you came here to California last year, because you're very like in the community, mashallah. You're so good at adapting to new environments, and I can't help but believe this is because that's how you
and
grew
I
up.
feel like because that's how I grew up, and then you have to. I would say it was a survival skill that I developed over time without noticing. I didn't even know that it was actually until people pointed it out to me. Oh, like, hey, I thought you actually grew up here, or hey, I thought you were born here.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's no, none of that is correct. But yeah, like even if tomorrow, if you have to move to a new country, I feel like this is one of the positive things of being a third culture child, where you grow up between different identities. You can relate to different things. You can look at things from different perspectives. Yeah.
Once you become, I don't know what the age is, but once you get once you become an adult, you just have more conviction in who you are. Exactly. This is who I am. I'm a Muslim woman. I'm a Muslim man. Take it or leave it. Like you just, or not even doesn't have to do with religion. It could just be anything. Like this is who I am. You just have more like conviction in who you are, and that's natural. Because when we're our 20s and teens, it's like the hardest years, right?
20s and teens. That's when you're trying to find
who you
your true
are.
self, or your identity. Like,
yeah. And I think also finding your true self is a lifelong journey.
It's a lifelong journey.
But I 100% agree that your 20s and teens are like you're so fragile. Your sense of identity is so fragile, and I think that's why for people who move a lot during those years, those are formative years. It affects like the path of your life and the path of your identity, because
Mm-hmm.
it's like those years I spent, again, I'm relating it back to myself.
Yeah.
My teens and my teens, I spent it like for most in America, in New York, and like it's like I was confused. Who is Yumna? How do I act in the situation? Do I am I a New Yorker in the situation? Am I Egyptian? Am I a Muslim?
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get older, you realize that those are all banks that you have that you can pull out from
Mm-hmm.
based on a situation. Like
That's
I
true.
can be New Yorker when I need to be a little bit aggressive.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
I can be
Brooklyn.
Egyptian.
Uh-huh.
You know, like those are just things that, and I think that's the conviction that you were speaking of. Like
Yeah.
you realize that you don't have to be either or. You could be all of them
Exactly.
at the same time,
Yeah.
right?
And why label yourself just with one thing?
Exactly. And
So,
and again, going back to your point earlier, that's the beauty of having multicultures,
yeah,
that you
yeah.
can pull out of these things whenever you need to pull out. Whereas someone who grew up in one place their whole life, that's all they know how to be.
That's why travel. You need to travel. Not
Listen-
just luxury travel.
Listen to this
Travel
man.
to experience things. Travel to meet people out of your comfort zone. Travel to experience thing through other people. Travel to see the other perspective. Yeah, just travel.
Yeah. And that was my next question, because
Mhm.
for you that don't know, Saeed is a avid solo traveler. Mashallah,
Mhm.
you've been, how many countries have you been to?
Not that many, but the list is growing slowly over time. But right now, I'm trying to break into South America a little bit.
Mm.
I haven't been to East Asia, Southeast Asia yet, so we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
And the motherland too, like hey, African countries as well. Like,
Yeah,
so
the motherland.
those are in the list.
I love that you said that. That's all I say. Like people say, "Where you from?" I say, "I'm from the motherland, Africa."
Exactly.
Let's start there. That's where I'm from.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. What was the first country that you visited?
After I got my American passport, it was Iceland actually.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh,
And I booked
Iceland
it just
so
because
bad.
an ad showed up. I was supposed to, so I used to live in Minnesota at that time, and I was supposed to visit my cousin in California, in LA specifically. And then when I knew that my cousin would be out of town, an ad showed up. Yeah, an ad showed up, and it says like, "Hey, from Minneapolis to Reykjavik, nonstop flight for this much price," and it was a good deal. I'm like, I have a long weekend, so
Oh, you went for a
book it.
long weekend.
Yeah, just from my flight was on, and it was spontaneous trip. Did not plan a lot of stuff. Just get up and go,
Yeah.
and it was interesting. I didn't do a lot of touristy things, but just when you're in a different country, walking in residential areas, the thoughts that would come into my mind is like, hey, what if you used to live in one of those houses? Or what type of experience, what type of person would you be? Are you going to be the same person who you are right now? Or other life experiences going to shape you? Are you going to be Yumna? Like Yumna, if you lived around that corner, like that neighborhood in Iceland and Reykjavik, and are you going to have the same experiences that you're experiencing right now? Or are you going to be the same person? So your identity is shaped by the circumstances that you faced, the experiences, the cultural stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, but even being that spontaneous is very rare, by the way. Most people, just tying it back to being a third culture kid, if you're a person who's never experienced change,
Yeah.
you would not book an Iceland trip on a weekend. You wouldn't. Like that takes
Yeah.
on some people. Some people are just like, oh, I want to be in my comfort zone. I want to be in my home, which is fine. That there's no judgment. But another positive of being a third culture kid is like being flexible,
Yeah.
having that open mindset. Were there ever a country that you visited or a community that you visited while you were traveling that felt like home?
No, but I did think about, like, hey, what if this was home? Like, what if this small village or this city was home and I used to live there, what would my life would look like? It's a question I always ask myself.
What is the answer?
I don't know.
Mm.
Am I going to be the person who I am today? If I grew up within those, if I grew up in that city or if I grew up in that village. And then there's another internal dialogue that say like, hey, I remember I was complaining about a lot of stuff. Like in my day-to-day life in California, I was upset because of this happened and that happened. Like the struggle, or not just the struggle, but I would say like travel would make you actually more grateful for what you have, and how you're so privileged and you have no idea until you go out there and travel and you see how those people, they're so happy with small things that they have and they're living life to the fullest. Yeah.
Why do you think that's a question you ask yourself?
That's a really good question. You mean, hold on, what question?
The initial question of, what if I lived here? Why do you think that's a question that often comes to your mind?
Never asked myself that question, actually. But no, that's actually a really good question. And I ask myself that question every single time. Hey, like why did I get, why, like how special I am? Why did I get the privileges that I have right now? And like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I ask myself the same question, by the way. Whenever I travel, I'm like,
yeah.
I love this place. What if I don't necessarily think, what if I lived here? I just look at the people and I'm like, what is their life like? Not to say that our life is better. Their life is better.
Their quality of life is way better.
Way better in ways that ours isn't. But you just look and you observe, at least for me, and I'm like, wow, what's that like? What are these people like? Like, what? I wonder what's their day to day like. I remember I went to I don't know if you've ever been to Bali.
No, not yet.
But I've been there's an island in Bali called the Gili Islands. It's like multiple islands. One of them that I went to was Gili T.
Okay.
And it's an island that you literally, like, Bali in itself is like in the middle of nowhere, like it's far, and then you have to take a boat ride for like 2-3 hours to get to. So it's like an island within an island in the middle of nowhere, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Beautiful. It's such a small island. There's no cars. You can only walk or take a bike. Like, that's how small the island is. Obviously, beautiful island. Bali's beautiful weather, and it's like a tourist island, so whatever.
Yeah.
But there is the small shops, as I'm sure you know, in any country. And then I remember the woman who's like holding her child as she's opening up the shop and like hanging her little stuff that she's gonna make a couple of dollars from, and she's so happy.
Yeah.
She's like, and then it's not like fake happiness because I'm a tourist. No, like pure gratitude on her face. Like, she's just so at peace, and that always stands out to me, perhaps because this is something that I'm looking for here. I'm always surrounded by so many things, and I'm like, wow, our life, just our life is so rich in so many things, but it's lacking in so many other things. And it's those things that you find in other countries. And that's why I'm a huge advocate. Go out and travel, get out of your own bubble. Like, we live in a very privileged bubble here.
Yeah.
So while I don't necessarily ask myself what it was like to be born here, I try to find that connection. And I know I try to find that connection because I'm trying to find that connection in my own life. You know what I mean? So I'm constantly looking for home. I'm constantly looking that, when you say I want to move, every time I go to a country and I love it, like when I went to Morocco, fell in love, I want to move to Morocco.
Yeah.
When Singapore, fell in love, and it's like, why? And I think a part of me, when I think about these things, is like, I'm always looking for home, because when you are a third culture kid, you never had a home.
Yeah.
You moved around a lot, you and your family, and so again, this is my experience, at least. I'm always looking for home. Maybe if I live here, I'll feel like I'll belong. Maybe if I live here, I'll feel like I belong. But it's like, it's always constantly looking for a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
That's the reason I'm asking you. Why do you think you ask yourself that question? Is like, what would my life be like if I lived in Iceland?
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, what is the deeper? It maybe just something for you to think about.
Yeah.
But our mind doesn't bring up the same question if it wasn't rooted in something else. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
I
No,
went,
it's
I went
just
on a
actually.
rant.
No, that was amazing. Actually, that
But
was
honestly,
really
like
good.
I'm always just so
Yeah.
fascinated because even the desire to travel, like how you travel,
Yeah.
that's not a normal desire, Saeed. And I'm sure you know
Mm.
that. Like
Yeah.
people want to go to, Miami, and like they want to go to like luxury and comfortable. There's nothing wrong with that. But the
Mm-hmm.
fact that you do these kind of travels, that's like you try to look at life from the locals' point of view. That's a very specific
Yeah.
type of travel.
With solo travel, when I travel solo, it's because you're not comfortable when you travel solo. You're not surrounded by the people that you know. You're surrounded by strangers or um. No, I feel like it just keeps pushing you out of your comfort zone. Um, and it teaches you how to learn to be comfortable in your own shoes, or like this feeling of loneliness when you travel alone. It's like, hey, it's okay, you got you know. You get
Mm.
to learn to become your own company. um
What have you discovered about yourself by traveling solo? Things that you didn't know prior about Saeed.
when you travel solo, you meet other solo travelers and you build this connection and you get to know them, and some of those solo travelers that you get to meet along the way can become like best friend. And yeah, it's it's a whole community. There's a whole community out there, and it's just amazing. And yeah, and trust me, like, because if you travel just with your friends, you're not gonna have the room. You're not gonna open the door to meet other people, or build connections with them. Like for example, when I was in Colombia, for example, I was traveling from Bogota. I was in Bogota, and then I met those people, and they're all solo travelers, and they're heading towards Salento, and I was like, yeah, I'll join. Like, I just joined them last minute, and it was actually one of the best experiences I've had. And we
Wow.
took an overnight bus, and it's and how you get to learn to build trust with strangers. It's not like the stigma that we've learned. Hey, stranger is a danger. No, actually, a stranger can become a best friend. You can learn a lot from a stranger, and like after that trip, sometimes you're never gonna meet. You might never cross paths with those people ever again.
Mm.
Um,
100%.
mm,
100%. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about traveling solo is the people you meet
oh yeah,
and how easy you get along with others and how different it is from what we've been taught.
and it's so easy. It's
And
it's
it's so
crazy.
easy and it's
Yeah.
so and for me at least I get a little sad. I'm like, oh, I'm probably never gonna see you again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Although you take their social media, you try to stay in touch, but it's just I'm never gonna experience
Those
this
moments
moment
again.
again
Mm-hmm.
with this stranger that I met who was also,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, 100%. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention or talk about that we didn't cover?
Um, travel, travel.
Yeah, give us like a 10 to 30-second promo for solo travel.
Book that flight that you've
Tell them.
always book that flight that you've always wanted to book. Um, Travel to that country you've always wanted to travel. Life is short, and yeah, just go ahead and do it.
But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next episode. Bye.
Bye.